rolling and introducing myself. My name is Ed Kinney. I am the product training manager here at Korbyt. So it's my responsibility to take clients like yourselves through the learning sessions to get you familiar and capable within the Korbyt content management system for your signage. It'll be helpful as we go through our events. Today is the first of a few learning events. It'll be helpful to have some insights into exactly what your specifics will be around using Korbyt. So are you focused more on the technical side as an early adopter, getting screens set up, but having others use them? Are you the person who's going to be building initial communications for your department or your group? Or are you doing a bit of all of the above? It'll be helpful to have that insight about your expectations as we dive into this training series. So there's quite a few of you on the call, so I don't want to take up your time like going around and having you come off mute. So let's leverage our technology. If you could go ahead and use the chat section. You don't have to type your name, obviously, because it's going to capture that unless you're in a conference room with a bunch of people. And if you could just briefly share in the chat, what you'll be focused on doing in Korbyt. And if there's anything specific that you're hoping to learn how to do by the end of these learning classes, if there's a specific job function that you need to know how to do because it's something, that's a big part of your use of the system. So if you could take a moment and type in the answer to those 2 bullet points there as I introduce you to our learning environment. So I hope that today and in all our learning sessions, we can have them be interactive. And what I mean by that is I'd like you to ask questions as you have them. So as you have a question that comes to mind, please don't sit on it. Don't wait. My least favorite type of questions are the ones that don't get asked because they slip someone's mind as we just go through a lot of material. So please ask questions as you have them. We have tools at our disposal to help with that interaction. We have the chat function, which you're using at the moment. And in Zoom here, there's also a raise hand function, which will let me know that you want to come off mute, that you have a question, a statement, a concern, something to share, letting me know that my mic garbled for a minute there and I need to repeat myself. Whatever the case may be, you can use those tools there. Or frankly, just come off mute. Just come off mute and let me know that you have a question, comment, or concern. A lot of people also try to take a lot of time apologizing for coming off mute, even though I've explicitly said hey, please let me know as fast as you can when you need a question answered or a concern addressed. So please don't even bother apologizing. Just pop off mute and interrupt me and let me know you have a question, comment, or concern. The learning sessions do get recorded, like today's. They are sent to you along with all the slide materials. I don't want you to have to be thinking about capturing screenshots. We're going to send you all the slide materials. So I mentioned it's a learning series. Craig mentioned that Joshua's kind of laid out some learning events, and he has. And here you see our schedule of learning events that we have on the calendar at the moment. Again, focused on some of you early adopters and more tech-savvy users. Today, we have our platform overview, and you can see our agenda for today to the right, talking about logging in, navigating, basic tenant-wide settings and how to find those, help and support resources as you start using the system. We'll also talk through user roles. And here we're talking about Korbyt defined user roles. For signage, we actually have 6 different user roles or levels. You could think of them that way, that let you have different permissions in the system. So we'll take a look at those, make sure everyone has the right role or the right understanding of roles that others should have. And we'll look at how content flows within Korbyt, how you go from loading content that you already have, pictures, videos, materials into Korbyt, and how you make those show up on the right screens at the right times. So we'll look at that at a high level. We dive into all of these topics in those other events that you see to the left. Users, players, and audiences focuses in on those administrative tasks of adding and managing users and groups, managing players. Players are those pieces of equipment that are going to be attached to your screens that actually make the content show up at the right time and place. Content and publishing 1 and 2 are much more creative focused, much more communicator focused. We talk more about the ability to upload and edit content within Korbyt. And then in content and publishing 2, we spend really the whole hour talking about the builder tool, which is the design studio that's built into Korbyt to create new digital signage, adding things like scrolling text, videos, RSS feeds, pulling in websites, adding videos, images, logos, all those types of creative tasks in the system. There's also an advanced training. Advanced training focuses in usually on data topics, but it's a bit customized to whatever your needs are. Not on the list is also another session that we plan on delivering for the larger audience of your end users, people who are going to have a much more limited interaction with the system. So that's our learning agenda, both at a high level and at a level for today. I see that quite a few of you have been sharing in insights about how you'll be using the system, kind of your role in the Korbyt system, what you plan on having a hand at. Let me pause here for a moment and ask, are there any questions, comments, or concerns that I can address about our training today, the training in general, or honestly, just questions that you knew you were coming to a Korbyt training event this afternoon and you have questions kind of lined up, top of mind? I like to capture those, even if they're too big to maybe answer at this moment. I hate forgotten questions. So
Ed, let me share a little bit of information just since you've outlined kind of what we're doing from a training perspective. That advanced training perspective, that advanced training class, we're gonna wait to do until June, until we've gotten much further into the launch of the product and have had the opportunity to develop some questions. So that's why that's still to be announced. And then, like you said, we also have an end user training that we will plan for the early part of June once the message goes out. And for all of y'all that are on this list as well, Craig and I have been working on some communication that's going to go out to all the content owners that are current 4Winds content owners in the system. That's probably going to go out tomorrow. That's going to tell them a little bit about this change and this, basically letting them know they don't need to take any action until we get ready to do training in the early part of June. But I just wanted to kind of add that to this overall session as well.
Some fantastic insights. Thank you for sharing that, Joshua. Any other questions, comments, or concerns as we get started? Not hearing any. Let's dive in. Our first topic, your Korbyt tenant. And if you've been on any calls with us up to this point, you've probably heard that word before, tenant. It's not meant to be mystic or anything like that. It just means your collection of services, players, content, and users. They are all bound together within your tenant. Doesn't really explain what Korbyt is, though. So Korbyt and your tenant, at its heart, is a cloud-based content management system, or CMS. And that's the acronym, or really the initialism, that I'll be using to describe the management portal to control your signage within Korbyt, CMS, content management system. It being cloud-based means that it works with any computer operating system. It works anywhere that you have internet. Now, with it being web-based, you have to use a web browser to get full functionality. Got to ask that you use either Chrome or Edge web browsers. Firefox and Safari, they'll work up to a point, but you will eventually run into errors in the system. Your user ID in the system, with it being cloud-based, you'll have your own URL you can go directly to, or you can go to our website and click log in. So Korbyt.com and then log in. Now, your identity inside of Korbyt is going to be tied to an email address. That's your user ID in the system. Now, how Korbyt knows your identity and how you authenticate your identity, we have different means to do that. And from what I've been told about your tenant, you're going to be using the Okta single sign-on service to verify into Korbyt. So you'll get your Okta pop-up to, log in and manage your entry into the system. It's important to understand still, even with using that single sign-on, your identity in Korbyt is tied to your email address. That's the unique user identifier. After you log in, you'll be looking at the dashboard. And the nice thing is the users of this platform, we don't have individual licenses for this. So the ability to log in and manage the platform is not tied to individual costs. So you can add users kind of as needed to manage the signage system. What users will see on the dashboard is going to vary based on the user role that they have. One thing that's always common is they'll have a collection of tiles at the top that give them some insights into their service. Depending on their user level, they may or may not have a player location map in the world. Depends on if they have permission to see player information. One thing that's always the same, though, no matter what type of role you have, how you interact with the system is based off the icons across the top of your dashboard. The main one being the mega menu here in the upper left-hand corner. When you click on that, it will open up a menu of items of your services. Now, my slides, they're generic. They're not your actual services. So we're going to take a look at your live dashboard at the moment. So here we are in TCU's live systems. And you can see your tile information. And if we click that mega menu in the upper left, you'll see what your services look like in the sections that you have available. Device management. This is where you can manage players and player groups. Players, again, are those devices connected to your screens, putting that video content onto the screens. They are also connected through your network back to your Korbyt cloud service. In essence, when you're logged into the website like this, you can think of it as you are looking at the server's side of the information. You are looking at the service. The players are out there in the world connected to the service via the network. Schedule. This is where you manage playlists. Playlists are the feature inside of Korbyt that controls what content gets seen when and where. So you take content, it gets put onto a playlist. That playlist is assigned to a player. So if you want to change or control what is seen on the screens, you need to be able to edit and adjust playlists. And then there's content. That third column over, all the types of things that you would project onto your screens, whether it's content that you have on your computer or in your systems already, images, videos, iconography, those get uploaded to the media manager. You can examine all of your different types of content in your asset manager, so you can see what's in the system kind of at a high level. Layouts are designs that are specifically built for signage. within Korbyt. So they have things like the time, the date, dynamically changing or scrolling text. They're not just still or predefined. And launch pads are templates within Korbyt that you can use to quickly create new content. And through the layout builder, you can create new launch pads. Those three are the main sections of Korbyt that we're going to actually take a deeper look at in this training today when we talk through the actual flow of content. Two more columns, analytics and advanced. Analytics gives you access to things like reporting. These reports, the most prevalent is the audit trail, which shows you the who has done what within the system. You can see the system's refreshing that for me. Or your core reports, things like player inventory or media added in the last 30 days, seeing what's been added in what format by who, and its dimensions. So very, audit heavy. What do we have? Who's done what in the analytics and reporting? Then in the advanced section, this is where things like data integrations are built. It's my understanding you're going to be having, like we see here, emergency services, rave alerts. That information is being fed into this section of Korbyt, and then it gets used by others. So that is how you navigate within the day-to-day use of the Korbyt system. And that's that mega menu at the top. Now, what you see available to you and what actual pieces of content you see when you go there are going to depend on your user role and any user groups. So I've mentioned that before a couple of times, user role. So let's take a little bit more detailed look at the user roles within Korbyt. So within Korbyt's digital signage service, there are 6 different user roles that someone can have. Individuals, if they're going to log into the management portal that we're in here today, have a role. That's it. Just one role that defines what they can and can't do in Korbyt. So for example, a content approver, so one kind of here towards the middle, a content approver has no ability to manage other people or manage media devices. They do, however, have the ability to create and edit playlists so they can affect what is seen on your screens. Whereas a content author can't actually create or edit playlists. So they can add content into the system. They can upload new items. They can use the crop and filter tools that are there for media items, but they can't on their own make those things seen. Now, I don't necessarily want to read the entire eye chart here from you. So let me ask, are there specific questions, seeing this chart or your own experiences in the system so far, that I can answer for you around user roles?
Ed, I just want to say that we set all of the users here that aren't in IT in as content approvers, so they can see all the things they can do there. And then coordinators are administrators level.
Fantastic, fantastic. It's always nice when, there's kind of a plan of who should be able to do what. So for those of you listening on the call, what that means for you and your abilities in the system. If you are at that content approver level, you have full control of being able to add content or create new layouts in the system, create new templates in the system, and you can edit and create playlists to make content seen on screens. What you won't be able to do that those people who are approver level can is content approvers won't be able to actually add, delete, or edit the player-specific settings. So a content approver can create a playlist, assign it to a player. It'll go out, that player will play it. But a content approver cannot go to that unique player, tell it that it should change its output resolution, for example, or that it should do a software upgrade, or we're going to update the thumbnail of its screen capture preview. You have to be an administrative level user to do that type of task, or to add or create new users of the system. Those as well, administrative level privileges. Giving a pause for a second in case that's driven more questions about those user levels. Okay, so back to our live system and out of the slides. So the mega menu gets you into all the sections that you can actually access with your role. The Korbyt Anywhere logo here is also an icon. It takes you actually back to the dashboard. If you're ever into a spot that you don't want to be, you can always go back to the dashboard. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. It kind of throws off the proportions, but it lets us see this upper right-hand corner a bit more. There are some icons here as well. There's a global actions section, which allows you to quickly go to specific tasks within Korbyt. There's a notification section. This will be important if you add users who are content authors into the mix. That's because content authors can create and edit designs, but they can't publish their own designs. So they would be requesting approval for their designs that they build. Those requests for approval show up here in the notification section. There is a gear next to that. This takes you to your tenant-wide settings for Korbyt. Now, you have to be an administrative level user to get into most of these settings. We'll talk about these settings as we go through the other classes and what they affect. For now, I want to let you know that there are different sections across the top. So there's general, there's signage specific and unique questions, there's delivery, couriers, predefined layout settings. So different sections there. I also want to let you know that not necessarily every setting will apply to every service. For example, these branding controls for Korbyt will not affect your digital signage. I mention that especially because I see that someone has set their primary, secondary, tertiary colors. These would be affecting a mobile and web service deployment or our desktop, sometimes called in-view service, but they don't affect your signage. So I just don't want to make, I want to make sure you're not like, well, we set our primary colors. Why aren't they showing up in X, Y, or Z menus? They just don't affect your signage service, just so you're aware. So those are the settings. As we keep going across, there is a question mark here. It's for help. This actually opens up our knowledge base. You can also get to it at kb.korbyt.com. It's just a website, publicly accessible. You don't need a username or password. Here you can type in questions or keywords of what you're looking for, or you can look at our frequently asked questions. You can browse straight through just the knowledge base of articles, or you can look at the sections of our knowledge base. So knowing that you're looking for signage, you could go to the signage section and see what we have available for resources. Or if the jargon of digital signage has got you down, we do have a Korbyt glossary of terms, for example. So that is through that help icon. Now, the next section doesn't look necessarily like a section, and this is the user section. So everyone has the ability in the system, if they hover over their profile outline, to go to their own profile. So here you can see mine that was created so I can take you through the training classes. Users can do things like edit their, friendly display name if they want to change something like that. What they can't do is change that email address. That is their user ID. So generally what happens, even with SSOs, if someone has a life change event that changes their email, they end up with a new user ID tied to that new email. So I don't want that to throw anyone off if that happens. So everybody can see their own profile. If you are an administrative level user, you can get into manage other users. And that's where you can see, excuse me, the users that are in the system, the emails that they have tied to them that are their unique email, their role in the system, any groups that they are a member of. We'll talk more about groups in our next class for users, players, and audiences. And you can see last login and last time the profile was updated. And that's how you navigate within the Korbyt system. What questions can I answer for you so far? Okay, not seeing anyone race to come off mute or typing anything into the chat. We'll carry on. So if that's how you navigate around the system at a high level, let's talk about how content flows within Korbyt, how it goes from being loaded into the system to being seen on a screen. So in the system here, if I open up the mega menu, we're going to start in the content section. I presume because you're coming to us from a digital signage provider that you have things that you have built for your signage already. Bringing them into Korbyt starts with the media manager. This is where you can load things that you have outside of Korbyt into Korbyt. This is where they start their life in the system. So you can see a folder structure here to the left. You can create and manage folders and subfolders at need. You can see the different TCU groups have subfolders built for them. This is a very smart strategy because it allows you to then use the group function, we'll talk about in the next class, to limit who sees what. So being able to go to the media manager, everyone can go to the media manager. But based on your user group, you may or may not be able to see all of the folders. If you can't see a folder, it and its content are hidden from you. So you can't access it, you can't use it, you can't see it. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder here just for our training examples. So I can house some examples that we build throughout the classes. I'm going to call it Korbyt Training Examples. I hit enter, and now I have a new folder, Korbyt Training Examples. And I'd like to upload some content into that folder so you can see how it works. The first step is clicking the folder. So if I want to bring things into that folder, I need to select it to start. And then I can hit import media. Now I have an interface here where I can browse my computer. And I can use like my control key on my keyboard to grab multiple items. I can also drag and drop items into that space. As I'm uploading content in this way, I can add tags. I'm going to add the tag Korbyt Training to this content. could add copyright information if I needed to. I can even briefly use my browser to log into popular file storage services. So I could go to my OneDrive. Chrome is logging me into my OneDrive. And I could grab a file and copy it into the Korbyt tenant without having to go to the service, download it to my computer, and then upload it to Korbyt. So that was a one-time connection facilitated by the web browser, effectively. When I hit submit, I'm going to have my new copies of my items here in the system. You might be wondering, what type of items can you bring in? Well, if you hover over the import media button, there is a link here to our knowledge base on supported media types and their specifications. So for images, JPEG, PNG, audio files, we support video files, some footnotes on video files. We'll talk more about those in Content and Publishing 1. Documents that we support, and other. So this also is available. If you click the import button, there's also the link there to the supported media formats article. So I have the items that I brought in. Now, if you're really following along, you might be wondering, Ed, where'd this folder come from? Because I didn't upload a folder. I grabbed a document and a few pictures. So what has happened here and what Korbyt does, if you upload a PPT, so a PowerPoint, or a PDF document, the system understands that commonly what that means you're trying to do is show those pages or present those slides as though they were image files. So you can play the slideshow. The challenge is the Korbyt playlist mechanism can't accept that type of raw document. It doesn't have a way to distinguish like what happens between the pages. So what Korbyt will do for you, if you upload a PPT or a PowerPoint document, it will automatically translate that into a series of PNG image files. Here's today's slides. And it puts those image files into its own folder with the same name as the presentation. So that's what it'll do with PPTs and PowerPoints. I do still recommend, though, if you're building something in a system like PowerPoint and you want to show it on your screen as an image, I still recommend in PowerPoint simply saving as either JPEG or PNG. Save the files natively within PowerPoint or your other systems. That way you avoid any sort of translation errors that might pop up with this automatic transcoding option here. But what we have so far right now is just items that are now being stored in your tenant. They're not being seen anywhere. They've only just been uploaded into the system. Being a piece of content, being in the media manager is not enough on its own to make your content seen on a screen. Let me ask, though, what questions can I answer for you about uploading content into Korbyt?
Can you upload multiple files at once?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I just did multiple, images in a PPT. It could have been multiple PPTs and a video and a PDF. Most definitely. Yes. Okay, we'll talk more about the media manager in our content and publishing one class next week, because it has some more powers to it that go beyond just warehousing documents. Now, the media manager is for content that you already have and you're just uploading to Korbyt so you can send it to a screen eventually. There are systems within Korbyt, though, to build new content. The easiest of those is the Launchpad content. So Launchpad really represents templates. Templates that are made available in the system. Some of them are just Korbyt templates that we, give everyone as starting templates. You can also, as you see, build your own templates. It looks like someone's in the process of building a template here. See a question typed in: group scheduling. So scheduling, making content seen as a function of playlists that we'll talk about in a moment. In terms of auto removal deletion, there is one auto deletes option, and it is tied into validity dates. We'll talk more about what that all entails in our later classes, but that is a good question, Michael. We'll make sure we touch on those. Okay, so these Launchpad templates, these give someone the ability to select a template and then create a new piece of content just by editing the sections of the template they're allowed to edit. So this template is designed so that someone can change this, company logo in the upper left. I can search through the media manager of items that have already been uploaded, or I could upload new content from my computer. I'm just going to go ahead and pick this icon, just needed an icon. I can then fill in the other pieces of information. So I can add a room name. I can add a description of what's this event that's happening. Can put other information. I can't change the time and date. This is like live time and date. Why it's saying 4:40 is because that's my local time. I'm in upstate New York. So this is saying, like, when this gets created, part of the design is going to be the current time and date, not the scheduled time and date. I could change this picture here. Again, I can click the pencil. I can pick an item from my media manager, what I've uploaded, and then I can publish this design. I'd have to give it a name, and I'd have to select which player I would like it sent to. Now, my ability to see these players is tied to which groups I am a member of, but I can see both individual players and player groups. So I could send this to all of the IT players in the player group for IT, or the honors, the FA music. You can just see some of the groups that have already been created in your tenant. I'm not going to publish this to any of your screens. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the X there. So these are the launch pads. Again, some Korbyt provided templates. You have the ability to create new templates of your own for users to use, or for yourself to use. Where you build those, or just build more complex items for your screens, is in the layouts section. So layouts, what layout means is that it's not a single item. It's actually a collection of items all pulled together to be shown in a specific way. And they can be used to be sent directly to screens, just as a It would look to the end user like it's one construct. They can also be used to create things like kiosks and have interactivity. They are still these pieces of content. Creating new layouts is fairly simple. You actually start by picking a template to create it from, either a Plank template or templates you've created. You have to give it a name. I can even give it validity dates. And then I can build my design. Our content and publishing to class is going to be exclusively really just about this builder tool, how you go about adding images to the design. And you can define their properties and change the graphical look of items. I just grabbed a slide from that presentation. I can add text. I can add a scrolling message ticker that I type in or that someone else fills in. And I can build up my design on the screen. It's still just content, though. I can build, save, and publish this design without it ever going out to a screen. So we've just been out here in the content section. Again, the item that controls what and when gets seen is playlists. So if I go into the playlist section, you're going to see quite a few playlists already built in your system. Excuse me. From the list view, you can see things like their name, their type, the date they were created. Any of these columns are sortable. So I mentioned that especially as you start using the system. And if you come here to say, create a new playlist, and you leave and you want to come back and find that playlist you just created, sorting by created date or last updated date can be helpful because it's going to bring to the top the thing that was edited the most recently. If you go to add a new playlist, which anyone who is a content approver or above can do, you get presented with a choice. Adding a playlist, which will result in a standard playlist. You'll have very few configuration options. Or you'll see really the preferred choice is the second one down, Clever playlist. When you're working with Clever playlists, you have a lot more options in terms of the way you configure the playlist. But this controls what gets seen when and where. So first, playlist needs a name. I'm going to call it Training Playlist Clever. Let me even just put, since you are a school, I'm going to put Korbyt Training Playlist Clever. Then I pick my content. And because this is a Clever playlist, I can mix and match. I can add individual pieces of content. So if I click the plus, I can pick through my available images, videos, layouts that have been built in the system, or even websites that have been added as a media resource. I'm going to grab an image here. Grab my dog office picture. I'm going to grab one of your videos that you have available in the system. Grab a layout and add those three. So you saw as I moved through those menus, it remembered what I have picked. So I don't have to like add each individual. I can go through, pick all the things I want to add them in. If you have individual items like this, though, it'll tell you what type of item it is. This is an image, a video, a layout. There is another way to add content to a playlist, though. You can add content through automation. We call this automation a clever rule. So you can add a clever rule using this rocket ship. So if you click the rocket ship, it brings up your interface to build the rule. I'm going to call this Korbyt training example 1. You can build, you got to give it a name. You can build your content selection off different criteria. You can have it based on the tags. If you remember in the media manager section, I said that as you upload content, you can tag it with metadata. So now I can use that tagged information to add items to my playlist. So I can say if it was tagged with Korbyt training, and I can add other tags into the mix. I can also add other selections to pick the content if there were more tags I wanted to use. And then I can decide what that means. So if it has the Korbyt training tag, I want to show the item, let's say for 7 seconds. And I'm going to crossfade between the items. I can click my little blue plus here and I can get more configuration. I only want to show, videos. Let's go images. Images that are tagged as Korbyt training. And I want to order them A to Z named order. So I can build up these options here and then I can click add. And now you can see I have a clever rule. And this clever rule is deciding what is in this playlist. If a new piece of content was added into Korbyt in your tenant that had that Korbyt training tag, it would become part of this playlist automatically. I wouldn't have to take any action. So tags is one of the most common ways to automate your content. The other is through folders. So I can name this like Korbyt training slides. I can say, yep, I want to go to a specific folder. I want to pick my folder that was created through that automatic transcribing process. And I want to show them for 5 seconds each. And you know what? There's a lot of slides in that presentation. So I don't want to play all of them at once. When this rule hits in the playlist, so it shows this for 30, this for 33, because it's a video that's 33 seconds long, shows this for 30, plays all of these items. This one, I only want to play 3. So when it hits this rule, it'll look at that folder, pick 3 items, show those, and move on. Next time it comes back around, it'll pick potentially different items. And I could have this, be any number I want for this number of items. Now I said potentially different items. That's because, again, you can get into your options and decide what your order is. So if I do random order, it truly will be 3 random images from this folder every time it hits on a playlist. Instead of random, if I want to do like most recent to oldest, now it's going to go through an order. It'll play the 3 most recent. When the playlist comes back around to this item again, it'll play the next 3 in that order. So now I've got a playlist that has a mix of statically chosen items and a couple different clever rules. And I can click and drag these to move them around in the order however I want to. This is my content. Now, where is it going to show up? That's a little bit lower here in the playlist. Here, I have available to me all of the players and player groups that are visible to me. Again, through group functions, you can limit who sees which players. So I might be a content approver who's able to go in and create a playlist. I can create playlists all day long, but I might not be able to assign it to every player in the system. I can only assign it to players that I've been given visibility to be able to see. So you can see these are player groups. That's why there's like multiple items. There's 3 players there. The standard icon is always 3. So I don't want you to think there's like only groups of 3 in here. You can say, yep, I don't want to see groups. I want to see individual players, in which case you see the individual player names. You'll see any descriptions that have been ascribed to those players. You can also search for specific player names. To add players to a playlist, you can just click next to the name, or you can click and drag to move the player or the group. So if I open this playlist up, I would know that this collection of items is being sent to that player group, those 2 players. I am not going to hit save on this. I'm going to remove those players first because I do not want to actually send this out to your screens. This is me just showing you an example. The other thing you have control over at a high level is this playlist schedule. Players can receive multiple playlists. So you could send 4 playlists to a player. It could have campus-wide messaging, department messaging, building messaging, and a 4th playlist that I can't think of off the top of my head as an example name. A player could have all of those playlists, and if they're all valid for all day, every day, they'll just play in rotation. So the first playlist will show its content, second playlist will show its content, and they'll just rotate around. Or they'll only play during their defined schedules. So maybe this isn't all day content. This is evening content. So I'm going to go straight down to the advanced here. And I'm going to say this should only play between the hours of 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. And I only want it to play between those hours on Saturday and Sunday. So it's no longer an all-day, everyday playlist. It's only valid on Saturdays and Sundays between the hours of 7 and 11. As I'm building this up, I can hit Save Playlist, and now my work is saved. Now, with playlists, you see them all here. You have options. How you interact with items already in the system are always these action icons. Playlists are a great example. The pencil lets you go into and edit the playlist. The information shows you its information, like its name, description. The eyeball lets you preview the playlist. So let's preview the playlist that we have here. Oh, not getting anything. Any guesses why we're not actually seeing any of the content that I said should be on this playlist? No one wants to come off mute. No, I definitely saved it. It's a good guess, Michael. It's a good guess. It's actually its schedule. I said that this playlist, excuse me, should only play on Saturdays and Sundays between 7 and 11. It ain't that. So the preview, just so you know, that preview function on a playlist follows the instructions that you have given it. So if an item has been told it's not valid to be seen right now, or its schedule isn't valid right now, it will follow whatever instructions you have given it when you hit that preview eyeball. So now my content's actually playing. I know that it looks very similar to the Korbyt standard content, but it's actually our slides. It's going to play through a lot of these things before we get to other content. So that's the preview option. You can also do things like create a copy or clone a playlist. So if you want to make you have a playlist you like, but you just only want to make a couple changes, but you don't want to delete the original or affect the original, you can make a copy. If you have a high enough privilege, which is the administrative level, you can actually export playlists as well. It's a way to quickly back up content that's in the system. And trash can deletes. You have to be an administrative level user to delete a playlist completely from the system. But content approvers can, for example, if this playlist shouldn't be seen anymore, they can't delete the playlist, but they can edit the playlist, removing any players that were assigned to it, so it actually stops being seen out on screens, or deleting all the content off the playlist. So playlists, big topic. There's even more that they can do. We talk more about it in Content and Publishing 1. What questions can I answer for you today about playlists, though? And the last step in the flow of making the content seen, the last step in this flow is the player. The players are out there in the world. They're connected to both Korbyt through your networking and the internet, and to the screens themselves, typically via HDMI. They are receiving playlists and then playing back those playlists. It is not a streaming relationship. It is not like a Netflix for a sign. So the player receives a playlist from Korbyt. It includes the layouts, the images, the content, and the instructions, and they start playing it back. If a player is connected to Korbyt, every 15 minutes, it's going to check for changes to its assigned content. If a player is not connected to Korbyt, it'll be listed as inactive. Inactive means it's a player that's been connected to your tenant at some point, but is not currently able to communicate to the service. That's the last step in the flow. And there's more that we can talk about in terms of players, and more that we will talk about in terms of players in the next class, like the ability to go into a player, send it commands, see the content that's been assigned to it. So you can actually see all the playlists that it's being told to show. Those are administrative level features and ones that we talk about in the next class, which brings us to the end of our hour together today. Not saying, hang up the phone this minute, saying, what questions can I answer for you? I see one got typed in. How do you set the schedule for a slide to span 2 days? For example, 5 p.m. day 1 and at 9 a.m. on day 2. Certainly. So that's if you're talking about times, we are in the advanced section of the schedule. So I want to edit my schedule, advanced. I would combine both the date, start and end, and the time, start and end. I want it to start at 8 a.m. there, and I want it to end at a certain date or time. Or simpler is just a date range, meaning it's, able to play all day on that date range. And you can, in the date range, you can also pick a time. So if I want something to play on June 1st, from 8:30 a.m. until June 2nd, 3 p.m. That's how I would set that. And it would play from day 1 at one time until day 2 at another. If it was, well, I wanted to play for 2 days in a row, but only between certain hours each day, it'd be into the advanced. So, yep. Good question. What other questions can I answer for everybody today? A moment in case somebody's typing.
So Ed, in your years of experience with Korbyt and training, what's a couple of the things that users just hit right off the bat that makes them better if they knew how to do it?
So that, I'm sorry to say there's no answer for that. It really depends on what you're doing in Korbyt, because there's so many different tasks, different user types. There's some people that will never be touching content. They'll only be managing players. So for them, it's becoming familiar with, how to provision a player, how to get software up to date, how to troubleshoot a player that is misbehaving. For your content communicators, honestly, it's just using the system. So if you're concerned, or if other individuals are concerned with getting competent quickly, I will say, and this comes with the proviso that this is not my tenant, but I would say get hands-on now if you have access. Go into the system, upload a piece of content, go in and create a layout, put your name on it, say, this is my practice layout. If you want to wait till we get to those classes, I'd suggest that's a good idea, but there's no harm in like creating your own scratch work, especially in the media manager, because it won't be seen until a playlist pulls it and sends it to a player. It's one of the reasons that I create a training folder in the media manager. You could go here and upload your own examples if you want to practice. No one has built a rule that pulls from this folder and sends it to like the art department. So really, like the best rule I can give that I've learned from experience is that you learn from experience. So you just have to get hands-on with whatever you plan on using. Kyle, I see your question. Is there a way to quickly clone a playlist? Yes. If you look at a playlist item, it is actually the clone action. So let's me create a clone of it. Generically, it adds the word clone at the end, but you can change the name to be whatever you'd want it to be. And that creates a new copy of that playlist. You can go in and edit. I'm going to go ahead and delete these examples. Don't need them clogging up your service. Looks like you've got enough playlists there. Are there any other final questions I can answer for you today?
Ed, did you see my question about that default Korbyt background? I noticed that when you were previewing content that wasn't scheduled to run, that it defaulted to I didn't know if that was Korbyt slides or if that was the Korbyt default background.
It's the Korbyt default content. And yes, thank you for calling that out. I did not see that type into the chat. You can set your own default content. So there's a knowledge base article that explains you just create a playlist with this configuration, and it would replace the Korbyt default content. So
Awesome.
if there is nothing, it will play this type of thing. You won't find the default playlist in the system. You're just going to create a new playlist, give it that name and that tag, and it will override the Korbyt one. It's a good question.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions that I can answer for people today? Well, I want to thank you for your participation today. I look forward to seeing people in training on Thursday. I will call out that training Thursday, users, players, audiences, is administratively focused. We're going to be talking about managing people, managing groups, managing players. If you are a content approver, I'm not saying that you can't join the class, just simply you won't be able to actually do any of the tasks that I'm teaching that day. You have to be an administrator or a tenant administrator inside of the system to do those tasks. So I wanted to make sure I shared that information before somebody takes an hour on Thursday to go through something that isn't applicable. If I don't talk to you Thursday, I'll hopefully see you next week, Tuesday for Content and Publishing 1 and Wednesday for Content and Publishing 2. If you have questions between now and next learning events, please reach out. Let me know how I can help.
Thank you, Ed.
You're very, very welcome. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.